attacking all the European countries, attacking conservative podcasters, pretty well looking like he's on a rampage of, I guess, trying to find people to blame for what many people now think is turning into an enormous mess. What is your reading of it?
Well, it certainly is a disaster. It's a disaster of two people, Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump. They are both mentally unstable as individuals, and they both lead ruthless governments. Both are waging war relentlessly, brutally.
Guys, if you have any questions, comments, jokes, or disagreements, feel free to super chat it in, or you just want to support. Appreciate the support, guys. And let's not forget to double tap that screen and like the video, guys. We are at, let's see here, 322 likes. So let's even go ahead and get to 400 by double tapping that screen and liking the video. All right, guys, let's get right into it with our guy, Jeffrey Sachs.
Donald Trump has said things in the last few days that of a shocking nature that no president in American history has ever come close to uttering. And he's now attacked Pope Leo and posted a picture of himself as Jesus Christ. In other words, the man is mentally, this is one of the few times I agree with Hillary Clinton, I guess. The man is mentally unstable.
And people are already making like, well, let's just say this. Some people already made their corrections. Like, guys, check this out. Like, check this out.
Your reckoning has come. What is this?
Wild.
War is a disaster. It is going to create a global crisis. It was a war, not even to say of choice, but of whim of Netanyahu and Trump. Two people got us into this. It's a measure of how completely deinstitutionalized the United States government is, that this is basically a war chosen by one person with a sycophantic Secretary of Defense, all the rest of his tiny inside team going along, but knowing that this is tragic and farcical is the word that one of the insiders used. And no role whatsoever of Congress, no evidence of even a minimal interagency consultations other than to hear the objections of the intelligence agencies and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So,
I mean, bro, they kicked out, what was it, Joe Kent, head of counterterrorism, out of the briefings. Is like, hold on, like, we're talking about Iran, right? Y'all call them the biggest terrorist state, and you didn't have the head of counterterrorism, ex-CIA, ex-military, who literally fought these proxies in those briefings, giving you information. One of the most qualified guys we could find is left out of the briefings. Oh, it's no wonder this war is a shit show. Okay, that makes sense.
We're in the hands of absolute craziness.
What is fascinating, actually, as we're talking, he's now deleted, very unusually, the post of him as Jesus Christ, this image which he posted earlier. He very rarely deletes anything. What is interesting to me is I urged him to delete the post in which he was raging about ending civilization, which would have involved killing all 90 million Iranians. And I also didn't like his, and I urged him to delete the Easter Sunday message in which he was talking in the most foul-mouthed way about it all and saying praise be to Allah. None of this is helping anything from what I can look at.
Yeah, usually we have a political issue. Israel and the United States together have created a disaster in the Middle East. Israel has created a genocide. Israel and the United States together have created this war of whim in Iran that has killed thousands, but has already begun to devastate the entire world. But we also have clearly a clinical condition. We have an individual mental incapacity. the psychiatrists and psychologists that look at this call it the dark triad, meaning that the man is narcissistic, Machiavellian, in other words, completely untrustworthy in every way, and psychopathic, meaning that killing other people does not have any concern for either of these people. So these are both dark triad personalities.
And I know how a lot of people want to play this whole, ending of civilization, or, it's going to be power plant and bridge day. As much as I want to play that off, I just want you to know, no American president in history has ever made threats like that in public. None. Because let's be real, who want to be seen in that light? But all right.
Many people are saying, Piers, that Trump is also showing symptoms of frontotemporal dementia as well. In other words, that this personality has always been there, but the loss of impulse control has taken over, perhaps because of dementia added to this. We have a very serious issue. There's never been a president in this incapacity. It's very dangerous, but I just want to emphasize, on top of this is a collapse of our governmental processes. There are no consultations with Congress. Congress, for all intents and purposes, doesn't exist. The National Security Council, for all intents and purposes, does not exist. The intelligence agencies, for all intents and purposes, do not exist. They advised against this.
Yep.
So we have
our CIA was telling them no. Like, our intelligence was telling Trump, look, this is not a good idea. Israeli intelligence, the Mossad, was telling Trump, oh, this is a good idea and it's going to be easy and we should go along with it. And trust me, instead of listening to our own guys that our taxpayer money go into, the CIA, he listened to the Mossad, which pissed me off because it's just like, so hold on. Instead of listening to your fellow Americans, you're listening to a bunch of Israelis. I'm sorry, but I ain't got no hatred against Israelis, but I'm going to listen to my own over them every time. So, like, what the hell are you doing listening to the Israelis over Americans who actually serve America? You listen to Israelis who serve Israel, and you left out our CIA who serve America? Like, bro, what the F is wrong with you? But let's enjoy this quick little video pretty much explaining how those talks went down.
All right, BB, what do you got for me? Mr. President, the time is now. The Iranians are weak, and a joint U.S.-Israeli mission could finally bring an end to the Islamic Republic. Our intelligence says Iran's ballistic missile program could be destroyed in a few weeks. We can kill their leaders, and they'd be so weak and they could not choke off the Strait of Hormuz. And the likelihood of them landing blows against U.S. interests in neighboring countries is low. How would we effectuate the regime change? Street protests inside Iran would begin, and with the help of Mossad, we would foment riots and rebellion. Iranian Kurds could also assist. Mr. President, this is the time. Thanks, BB, for your presentation. My team and I will discuss. Can we get our intelligence people to look into this? We have broken down Mr. Netanyahu's presentation into 4 parts. 1, decapitation, which is killing the Iranian supreme leader. 2, crippling Iranian capacity to project power. 3, a popular uprising in Iran. And 4, regime change. It is our assessment the first 2 objectives are achievable with American might, while the 3rd and 4th parts are detached from reality. Just to summarize, Mr. President, regime change is farcical. In other words, Mr. President, it's bullshit. I would say regime change could happen, but it shouldn't be considered an objective. Yeah, I would advise against all this greatly. General Kane, what do you think? Sir, this is, in my experience, standard operating procedure for the Israelis. They oversell and their plans are not always well developed. They know they need us, and that's why they're hard selling. Okay, got it. Regime change would be their problem, but if we do this, it would be to kill their leaders and decapitate their military. Mr. President, any major campaign against Iran would drastically deplete our stockpiles with no clear path to replenishing. The Strait of Hormuz is also a real risk. Really? I think the regime would capitulate before it came to the Strait. I'm thinking this could be a very quick war, just like the 12-day war in Venezuela. Mr. President, I think we should do it. I'm more ambivalent. I don't think the Iranians will agree to a negotiated deal, but I prefer a campaign of maximum pressure rather than a full-scale war. I have concerns, but I defer to others on this topic. I think this is the worst idea ever, and I prefer no strike, but if we're going to do it, it should be limited. I think we're going to do it. If that's so, use overwhelming force so our objectives are achieved quickly. Yeah, I hear you. Hold on, Tucker Carlson's calling. Hello? Mr. President, don't start a war with Iran. I know you're worried about it, but it's going to be okay. How do you know? Because it always is. All right, team, we got a new piece of intelligence that the Iranian supreme leader will be at an above-ground meeting with other top officials wide open for an air attack. I think we have to do this. Thoughts? Well, Mr. President, here's what the attack will look like from a military military perspective. You know, I think this is a bad idea, but if you want to do it, I'll support you. If you feel this is needed for America's national security, go ahead. It is pretty rare to have the Iranian supreme leader and other top leaders in a gathering spot we can strike. So if you define regime change as just killing the supreme leader, we can probably do that. The plan put forward is legally permissible. But what's your personal opinion? I'm a Marine veteran, sir, who knows people killed by the Iranians. So if Israel intends to proceed regardless, we should go ahead. Mr. President, this would be a public relations nightmare. The American people voted for you partly for no new wars. It's your decision, Mr. President. The press team will manage it as best as we can. We have to take care of the Iranians eventually. Might as well now. There's many risks, but if you order the operation, we will execute. If our goal is regime change or an uprising, we shouldn't do it. But if the goal is to destroy Iran's missile program, that's a goal we can achieve. All right, we're doing it.
No regime change, no missile program destroyed, no drone program destroyed. So, yeah, even that guy was wrong.
A one-man rule, and the one man happens to be crazy.
I mean, there will be some who listen to you, Professor Sachs, and that you listen to your damning critique of Trump and Netanyahu, calling them psychopathic and delusional, as you did in an interview at the weekend. But then you went on to say that only Vladimir Putin, Narendra Modi, and Xi Jinping can stop Trump and Israel with their policies at the moment. And they'll say, well, hang on. You talk about delusional, psychopathic, and wanting to kill everyone. What about Vladimir Putin? Isn't that exactly the way that he's portrayed himself in recent years?
No, I think the situation is completely different. I'm talking of a psychological assessment of Trump. One can discuss.
Putin ain't never said he was going to end an entire civilization. And he never said, oh, I'm just going to go out there and take out energy infrastructure and bridges. He ain't never say that. Sure, my man has attacked civilian buildings and all that good stuff. But as far as going out there saying he's going to end an entire civilization or gloat about doing so, yeah, he ain't never did that.
As we have done at length, and I'm delighted that we've done so, how we got into this open conflict with Russia after all of the possibilities of peace. That is a historical process that lasted more than 30 years, starting with the U.S. cheating on the clearest possible commitment that it made about not expanding the U.S. military, much less to Russia's border. But that's a historical and political issue, and it's a major political issue. Here, I'm talking about a psychological issue. We have not seen any of those three leaders post themselves as Jesus Christ, take on the Pope, say that they're going to destroy.
Yeah, man. Thing is, Russia wouldn't, because, well, he's an Orthodox Christian. Russia is mostly Orthodox Christians, like Putin himself. And then, well, in China, I mean, they don't even really believe in religion. They believe in themselves, so they wouldn't do that. It's just wild that our president thought that it was, okay to do so. You know what? I mean, me personally, I wasn't all that offended, but I did see how, the Christian group is going to low-key lose their shit over this. Now, my man Castro, he's Christian, and he's like, it's not that bad. Like, there's red lines. Not like he called himself Jesus, and he's making fun of Jesus' teachings. So, I mean, that's fair. So as far as this is going, it doesn't seem like this is a big deal to MAGA, to be quite honest with you. So, I mean, it is what it is. Some people are going to take it more serious than others.
Destroy a civilization by evening, or use the language that we can't even use, Piers, or maybe we can use. I don't know if we're allowed to say, close the fuck.
Nah, Vladimir Putin isn't my man. I'm just saying, though, I would hope that our president would hold himself to a higher standard than Vladimir Putin. That's all I'm saying. I would hope that we wouldn't be sitting here making comparisons between our president and Vladimir Putin looking more like the saint here. It's like, I would hope we would never have to come down to that, but sadly, here we are.
Fucking straight, you crazy bastards, which the president of the United States wrote on Easter morning. This is something we should understand as being different. This is something absolutely distressing, because when we also understand the account of how these decisions have been made, they have been made by one person.
Is it not true that on that point,
Yes.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of debate, obviously, after what Hillary Clinton has said. Now, there's going to be a lot of debate about whether Trump is suffering some kind of cognitive issues, and that will be what it is. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah.
But is there, when you look at what Trump has done with Iran, I mean, I think I'm right in saying, I'm sure you'll know the answer to this, but since World War II, I don't think any American president has sought congressional approval for any military action, because they've never couched it as war. They've always couched it as a military action or whatever, which means they don't need to actually get pre-congressional approval. Is that the case?
Well, just to say, we've had a huge deterioration of our democracy since 1947, when the CIA was established under the National Security Act. So I won't argue with you there. There have been many attempts to go to Congress and to go to the United Nations for approval, sometimes disregarded in the end. Sometimes Congress has voted approval, like the infamous Gulf of Tonkin resolution, in which Congress authorized the use of force in Vietnam on false pretenses. And similarly, after 9/11, there was a congressional authorization of the use of force. But we've never had a process as deinstitutionalized as the one we have right now, where we basically, even the deep state, let's put it that way, the CIA, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Armed Services Committees of Congress, they're not part of this decision making. We know actually the kind of tick-tock that of how this war took place because of an unusually clear and explicit inside account that the New York Times reported a few days ago. This was basically Netanyahu spinning a crazy story to Trump, and Trump buying it while the rest of the room was saying, "Are you kidding? This is farcical." But this man, I'm sorry, I don't know how well you know him or not, and
so basically, like, while Bibi was telling his story, everybody in Trump's administration was like, "Bro, this man can't be serious." I'm like, "Bro, you really trying to tell us, oh, Iran's gonna fall in 4 days? Oh, they're just 2 weeks away from making a bomb." Like, dog, in your younger years, you were here saying the same exact crap. Like, I could see everybody in the administration low-key laughing at Bibi, like, "Bro, you're tripping. Like, you've been trying to do this for years. We're not listening to you now." And we have this anti-war president. Well, what we thought we had was an anti-war president. Then all of a sudden, the administration gets blindsided by, hold on, wait, you believe what Bibi says? Like, hold on, you really think that Iran is going to be taken out in a week? Really? You think Iran is going to be okay with us, taking their nuclear enrichment? Oh, you also think they're 2 weeks away from a bomb. You believed everything he told you? Like, bro, he's been pitching that to the last 3 presidents and nobody believed him. Why are you believing him? Like, why, Trump? Why? And I can only imagine him saying, "I'm going with my gut feeling. My gut's never wrong." Yeah, I can imagine that. And we're cooked if that's the case. But, and as I've been saying, yes, it has been told. Bibi's pitched this idea to multiple presidents and they all told his ass to kick rocks, because they all the intelligence agencies and the people in administration always laughed at Bibi like, "Bro, we know you're just trying to drag us into a war to fight against Iran because you guys can't beat them yourselves. And we're not doing it." But for some reason, Trump's like, "Oh yeah, we about to go ahead and do this." And for some reason, he let the Israelis trick him into moving the goalposts from no nuclear weapons, which Iran's already committed to no enrichment at all, which Iran won't commit to.
Apologize, but I observe him. I don't know him, but he's not very smart. This man is not knowledgeable.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I've known Trump 20 years. I would say he has.
Well, guys, you want to get the call-in line open, guys? Let's make sure we are supporting the show with a super chat, Venmo, or rant. You can go ahead and send that in through Rumble, YouTube, or Venmo. And guys, let's not forget to double tap that screen and like the video, guys. I believe we are close to 400 likes, so let's go ahead and double tap that screen and let's get to that 400 likes.
Actually, pretty good gut instinct normally, which is not necessarily the normal political smarts or huge intellect or whatever those things, but that his gut instincts have actually often been quite good. What was striking about the New York Times piece was that everybody else's gut instinct was that the the sequence of events that Netanyahu and the head of Mossad were laying out as what would happen if the Americans came in with the Israelis to attack Iran was the Ayatollah would go, the IRGC would start to collapse, the people would rise up, and they'd all be so distracted that no one would pay any attention to the Strait of Hormuz. And only the top bit of that happened. So, yes, they took out the supreme leader, but the rest of this did not happen. The IRGC remains firmly in charge. The people have not risen up. And the Strait of Hormuz has become an enormous economic battering ram where Iran's found out it can hold the world to ransom. And we're now in the kind of utterly perverse place where, having said that he would, blow up the whole of civilization in Iran, so 90 million people, if they didn't open the Strait of Hormuz, he is the one now launching a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz.
A blockade of a blockade.
Right. So you literally, yes. I just scratched my head. Just finally, Jeffrey, before we let you go, the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has just seen his 16-year rule ended. Peter Magyar, once a staunch loyalist of his Tisza party, won Sunday's parliamentary election by a landslide. Right. People are seeing it as a significant bellwether for MAGA because Orban's concept of illiberal democracy and his focus on Christian liberty and anti-immigration policies made him a hero to MAGA activists. And of course, one of the reasons Donald Trump sent J.D. Vance to try and save him at the ballot box, which was unsuccessful. I know you've praised the Hungarian government's stance on the war in Ukraine, specifically its push for peace negotiations and opposition to escalating the conflict. But is there a bigger sort of signal being sent here by what the Hungarian electorate has done? You've seen a rise of authoritarian leaders around the world since Trump won the election in 2016. Is this the beginning of the reversal of that, do you think?
I don't think so. I think what we have is people everywhere in Europe and in the United States are very unhappy. So approval ratings of our politicians are absolutely at the bottom. This is true in the UK. It's true across Europe. In just about every country, it's true for Trump. These politicians will lose at each election. This is what's going to happen right now. None of them is listening to the common sense of the public. Stay out of the damn wars, attend to our problems, which are very real. Stop this escalation towards World War III. And Macron, Merz, Trump, Starmer, none of them is going to face an electorate successfully because they're all unpopular. And in the case of Hungary, it's quite clear. Orban was in a very long time. People are unhappy with their economic circumstances. They voted him out. So at least this is what democracy does. It gives you that moment. It doesn't give you much say in between, but it gives you that moment to vote people out. And Trump is going to face this in November. He knows it. It's the end of the Republican control of Congress and the last 2 years of the Trump administration.
Yeah, it looks like he's about to bush it. Like, bro, he's about to completely bush it. People are going to be, honestly, not really too satisfied the Republican Party. We're going to have bad voter turnout, and the Dems are going to take over. And here's the thing. I know there was guys getting mad at the anti-war guys. So what are you going to do? Vote Dem? No, we're not. No, we're just not going to vote. And the Dems are going to have a better voter turnout than the Republicans, and they're going to win. And we're going to look at you guys like this is your fault because you sold out the America First agenda for a war that wasn't America First, and it completely cooked our numbers. And you guys kept cheerleading it as our numbers went down. Now, when it comes to midterms, you guys are going to be the same ones, salty as hell, that you now have a congressman that was a Republican, but now is a Democrat. You're going to remember me telling you that, the further we support this war, the more we keep on supporting it, the worse it's going to be for Republicans in the midterms. And you're not going to listen. And there most likely will be a blue wave because of this, because he's completely bushing it right now. The economy don't look so good. We're in a war. I mean, bro, it's complete sabotage of the Republican Party. And y'all ain't going to sit there and cry to us talking about, you're just going to let the Democrats win. No, y'all are the ones letting the Democrats win by not holding Trump accountable. Bro, y'all making the same mistake the Dems do. Excuse me. They don't ever hold their politicians accountable. And I said that's been a mistake of the Dems for a while now. And this is why they lost with Biden, because they can't hold their own accountable. And we're doing the same thing.
Are going to tie this man up in knots because he's going to be impeached almost immediately, I would presume, by a Democratic majority in Congress, and because he has abused the political system and wrecked living standards in the United States. So this is going to come up for a lot of politicians. I don't think it proves anything about clarity of any trends. There is no clarity in our part of the world, as you know. Everything is confused right now.
I am certainly confused, but as always, you bring a bit of clarity to a confused world. Professor.
And shout out to my man Noah Joyner is like, yeah, we should still vote, but we need to go based off policy and personal character. Basic research will help with that. And yeah, I'm all about that. Trust me. The problem is, though, is like a lot of MAGAs over here getting mad that we've lost a couple of these special elections. And I'm like, well, no shit, because we're not focusing on America first, or especially on affordability. We're focusing more on foreign intervention, if anything. So that's going to lean a lot of people away. That's going to discourage people to vote in these special elections. This is why we're losing, because the Dems, they're doubling down on their belief that Trump is not that Trump and the Republicans need to get up out of power. They're doubling down on that belief, and we're waning on our belief that they need to stay in power. That's the problem. Even if some of us still go out there and vote just on the premise of fuck the Dems, it's not enough because too many unfulfilled promises. And if they're not fulfilled by midterms, yeah, the Republicans are going to see a terrible voter turnout and they'll have nobody to blame but themselves. And of course, they're going to try to blame Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and the rest of us. But come on now, that's not right. You guys know that this was unpopular. You kept on doing it at us telling you guys that, yo, you're going to turn away a lot of us, and you still did it. And while calling us names. So when you lose those midterms, don't cry to us. Don't try to blame us. Blame yourselves for supporting an agenda that wasn't pro-American, that you try to paint as pro-American.
Jeffrey Sachs, thank you very much.
Great to be with you. Thanks a lot.
I'm joined now by my panel, Vincent Ashana, PBD podcast Angry Patriot, host of the Dan Abrams Show on SiriusXM and YouTube, Dan Abrams, Fred Fleitz, the Vice Chairman of the America First Policy Institute, and John Fugelsang, author of the book Separation of Church and Hate. Well, welcome to all of you, all with slightly different perspectives, I think, on this. Let me start with you, Dan Abrams, if I can. I mean, there's so much going on, almost 98% of it driven by what comes out of Donald Trump's mouth or his social media posts in the last 6 weeks. I can't get my head round any consistent strategy or logic to pretty much any of this. And I've really reached the conclusion that he got into something almost certainly at the enthusiastic behest of Israel. He's got into something that he now wishes he could get out of, but he's no idea how to get out of it. Am I wrong?
No, I think that's probably right. But I think that we need to separate out. You mentioned sort of getting caught up in the social media side of it, right? What he says, and we all respond and we react. And you're right. We do, right? That's typically what generates the news cycle. This is different. This is actual action. This is lives lost. This is $1 billion a day. This is a now situation where the exit doesn't seem clear. And, look, you can argue that militarily this has been a success, right? And that's what the administration would say. The follow-up question to that is, okay, that's true. It has. But then what? What have we achieved? What were the goals that we were seeking here? And now Iran is standing up to the United States. I mean, think about that. The United States and Iran held sort of face-to-face meetings, equals. And Iran stood up to the United States and said, no, we're not doing it. And so the response is, all right, well, we may bomb them again. Okay. Now, look, the blockade actually kind of makes sense in terms of trying to put pressure on them, but there's nothing that indicates it's going to work. And that's the question that we have to focus on. What is the goal here? What is the end? What are we trying to achieve?
Yeah, and I don't think we know. And I'm not sure President Trump knows. Vinny, welcome back to Uncensored. Great to have you back. Look, from where I'm looking, everything Dan said is correct. We were told, the New York Times did a big deep dive into this that revealed how Benjamin Netanyahu painted a picture of a sequence of events that would happen if the Americans joined Israel on this mission, and if they took out the Ayatollah, then the IRGC would be irrevocably damaged. Then the people would rise up, and they'd all be so distracted that no one would notice the Straits of Hormuz, and it would be irrelevant. None of that, apart from the first bit, has happened. The regime is clearly still firmly in place, albeit it's lost a few people, but they've been replaced by like-minded people. You've got the supreme leader being replaced by his son, for example, argument's sake, apparently wounded, but is alive and will be the new supreme leader. You have the people not uprising at all, not even rising up in the way they did in January when they were protesting. And the Strait of Hormuz has become...
Well, I mean, sadly, Iran's busy publicly executing anybody who was, damaging property during those protests, who killed an officer, burned down the mosque. Those guys are all getting executed, sadly.
This extraordinary economic battering ram being used by Iran to effectively...
And let's be real. I mean, the CIA and Mossad was helping out with those protests, giving these guys guns, and it didn't work out for us. It just did not work out. I mean, I guess Iran got more support than I guess the regime got more support than we thought. We thought we can give a whole bunch of protesters guns and they take over. Instead, they end up getting mowed down themselves, along with innocent protesters and along with Iranian police. So, it didn't work out, guys. That did not work out.
We hold the United States to ransom over literally a barrel or a few million barrels. Where's the win here, Vinny?
Please.
Well, thank you for having me back on, Piers. I'm happy to see that you're doing a little bit better and you're a little bit more mobile.
Thank you.
Piers, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's the article you're talking about, the New York Times. I've read it multiple times. I've spoken about it, and you nailed it, Piers. The first two were decapitating the Ayatollah, crippling Iran's capacity, but then the two main ones, the regime change and the uprising from the people. And one of the best quotes in that meeting, John Ratcliffe said it was farcical. Marco Rubio said, in other words, sir, it's BS. I'm not going to say the word. And then the most important one by the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Raisin Kane, he said, sir, this is, in my experience, standard operating procedure for the Israelis. They oversell, and their plans are not always well developed. They know they need us, and that's why they're hard selling. So, Piers, in that meeting, apparently, it was Bibi Netanyahu with Mossad on a Zoom call behind, and they pitched. Nobody was on board once Bibi left, but for some reason, the president went through with it. And having, my family's from Iran, Piers, as you know, we're Assyrian. And the people, we forgot about the people. What about the people? Now it's all about the oil. Now it's all about the Hormuz. And I just think Israel just, this is what Israel does. And at the same time, Piers, when we're basically, our troops, this all started, let's not forget, Marco Rubio on camera said, all right, he said, well, we didn't want to strike first, but since Israel was going to go and our assets, our soldiers, 13 of them, God rest their souls dead, they're going to be put in harm's way, so we got to go first, Piers. That really, really bothers me that he has that much control that since they're going to go, we got to go. Yeah, and for a nation, Piers, which bothers me, you mentioned this, I believe, last week, a nation that
the real disrespectful part about it is not only did they drag us into this war by saying they were going to attack Iran first, but under the fog of this war, they decided to go try and annex southern Lebanon. It's like, okay, so you were basically using us for your own agenda. Like, all right.
All know has nuclear weapons, but we all have to play this game like we don't know that they have nukes. Do you know how dangerous that is? The non-proliferation treaty, they're not in it, Piers. If God forbid they use a nuke, we can't even point and say, hey, it was Israel, because technically they don't have it, Piers. I think the people in the president's ear, they're not giving him good information. They're kind of swaying him that they want to. And Jared Kushner is over there with Steve Witkoff. Jared Kushner, does he even have security clearance, Piers? He's married to Trump's daughter, and he's known Bibi Netanyahu, Jared Kushner's family.
Thank you.
Charles Kushner has known him since he was a child. So that's a little conflict of interest for me, Piers. And again,
thank you. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, why is Jared Kushner even there? All the conflict of interest that he has, this should be completely unacceptable.
And when there's American soldiers and our troops are at risk, I'm not offended.
Yeah, it gets very real very, very quickly.
Oh, bro. Chad, hey, yo, what's going on, bro? But Chad, I got you. I actually got you on that one because the video is actually right here. Let's get right into this quick video real quick. Pretty much posted by InfoWars. because it pretty much goes with my man Chad's saying that, yeah, not only did, and I just found out about this, but not only did JD Vance have to report back to Trump while he was attending a UFC fight, but he was also had to report back to Benjamin Netanyahu. And it's like, are you serious? Our vice president has to report back to a junior in this war as if he's an equal. But y'all trying to say it's not about Israel. Okay, guys. Okay. Whatever.
I spoke yesterday with Vice President J.D. Vance. He called me from his plane on the way back from Washington. He reported to me in detail, as the people of this administration do every day, on the development of the negotiations. In this case, the explosion in the negotiations, the explosion came from the American side, which was not willing to tolerate the blatant violation of the agreement to enter negotiations by Iran. Essentially, the agreement was that there would be a ceasefire and Iran would immediately open the crossings. They didn't do that. The Americans were not willing to accept it. He also conveyed to me that the central issue on the table from the perspective of President Trump and the United States is the removal of all enriched material and ensuring that there is no more enrichment in the coming years, and this could be for decades.
So again, that's just total confirmation of what Joe Kent said about the way that Israel was leaning on the Trump administration to move the goalposts, move the ultimate ask that they were demanding of Iran with the intention of prolonging this war.
Yep.
Because they need to prolong the war. Their survival depends on them taking out Iran right now. They do not have 5 years to come back in 5 years to try again. They're losing their support in America. They need to do it right now. They are not going to give up. And they will go to any lengths to achieve this. We are in very, very high alert, false flag territory as we speak. Assad's stenographer, X, who is known widely as the Israeli Mossad stenographer, says Netanyahu at cabinet meeting, quote, I spoke yesterday with Vice President J.D. Vance. He called me from his plane on the way back from Islamabad. He reported to me in detail, as this administration does every day, about the development of the negotiations. In this case, the explosion in the negotiations. The explosion came from the American side, which could negotiate Iran's blatant violation of the agreement to enter the negotiations. The agreement was that they would cease fire and the Iranians would immediately open the gates. They did not do that. The Americans could not accept that. He also made clear to me that the main issue on the agenda for President Trump in the United States.
No. The real ceasefire was that you and America, since we walked into this together, Israel. So when they say that we got to stop firing, that means you too, dog. And they also said stop firing at Iran and their allies. Anyone who their allies are, the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Hamas in Gaza. So they're basically telling us to stop attacking them and all three of the groups I previously named. So please stop playing dumb, because the only reason the ceasefire didn't work out is because you decided to attack one of their allies.
It is the removal of all enriched material and ensuring that there is no more enrichment in the coming years, and that would be decades. So enrichment within Iran, that is their focus. And of course, it is also important to us. So that actually confirms directly what Joe Kent said in his resignation letter about these shifting goalposts imposed by Israel. That, and go watch his interview with me where we detailed this extensively, that forever the agreement had been no nuclear weapons, and that goalpost had been shifted to where the Iranians were telling the Trump administration any enrichment at all means that they're going for a nuclear weapon, so we have to go for zero enrichment. That was a change in policy, a change in demand from the Trump administration that the Iranians never said they'd agree to, and doesn't really make a lot of sense. So actually, Joe Kent responded to this statement from, the quote from Benjamin Netanyahu, saying upcoming negotiations will fail if we don't restrain the Israelis and stop giving them access to our decision-making. The Israelis push for zero uranium enrichment because they know it's a poison pill for Iran and will result in the war continuing. Iran has committed to not developing or obtaining nuclear weapons since 2003. A deal can be reached.
I know. That's what I'm saying. If it was all about Iran not getting a nuclear weapon, I mean, Khomeini already gave that to us in 2004 with that religious fatwa that he put in, saying that getting a nuke is a sin against God. So they never went towards a nuke. but they haven't reached towards 60%. But the religious fatwa is still in place. And the reason why we know this is because if they really wanted to get to a nuke, I mean, bro, they had it in 2021. They could have did it all under Biden, but they didn't. So, I mean, let's be real, guys. If they were so dedicated to doing so, why did they stop in 2021 at 60% enrichment? Because they were trying to use that as a deterrent for us to attack them and as a way to get back into the JCPOA as something to give away. Because if it was really going to be used for a nuclear bomb, I mean, bro, they'd have popped off at 2021 when it got to 60% enrichment, and maybe by 2023, they'd have had that bomb.
About uranium enrichment levels and monitoring, ending the war and opening the Strait of Hormuz. This can only happen if we treat the Israelis like the junior partner and put our interests first. So again, just sort of doubling down on the statement that he made during his resignation and in the subsequent interviews about the need for us to simply take our own side, ignore the demands or subjugate the demands of Israel to our demands. Pretty simple. But that apparently is not what happened. And again, the suspicion is, and the rumor is, that they were on the cusp when a phone call from Benjamin Netanyahu, he says, oh yeah, JD Vance gave me a call on the plane on the ride away. Oh, okay. So you didn't call him maybe during the negotiations. We weren't maybe on the cusp of an agreement when you swept in either with blackmail or some sort of other pressure point to scuttle the ceasefire talks that America really wants, JD Vance really wants, the American people really want, Iran seems to want, but that Israel doesn't want. This was all coincidence, you're telling me? I don't believe you. I simply don't believe you. Because this keeps happening over and over and over and over and over again. And then you've got clip 15 here. This was the announcement of the failed ceasefire negotiation. And of course, many people are pointing out and noticing that old Jared Kushner, who is not a member of the American government, does not have an official role in the American government, has never been approved by the Senate as any other presidential appointee would, has never even really made it clear what his, top priority is. I mean, he's taken no oath to uphold the, interest of America over anything. He's literally just some dude that's family friends with Benjamin Netanyahu and has been since childhood, and is basically there representing the private Israeli interests, only doing so under the color of the American flag. At least that's the feeling that people get when they see him hardly able to contain a smirk, even though what he's announcing should be embarrassing and a failure and honestly a tragedy, because had these negotiations worked, we probably would have avoided whatever death and destruction comes as a result of the failure of the talk. So here's a guy who just failed to get peace, who just failed in his supposed mission on behalf of America, who just failed to find an off-ramp of what could very well become the deadliest war of all.
I don't know. My opinion, they set JD Vance up to fail. If he got to check in with all those people, bro, he has no real power in those negotiations. If that's the case, it should have been Trump and Bibi that pulled up to those negotiations, not JD Vance and Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, because apparently they don't hold any power.
All time in an earth-destroying World War III, and he seems unable to contain his glee. Let's watch. So again, people just noticing that while JD Vance looks, appropriately dour, appropriately
Kushner smiling,
serious about this, Jared Kushner is slinking around in the background like an alien from Signs, grinning and smirking knowingly, along with Steve Witkoff. And of course, remember, Steve Witkoff was being interviewed with Jared Kushner about Gaza and accidentally let it slip that the creation of the Board of Peace and the annexation, essentially, of Gaza into Israel was the fulfillment of, over 2 years of planning. And that's when Jared Kushner kind of gives him the side eye and is like, not really. Don't say that, Steve. It's like, yeah, the war hasn't been going on for 2 years. What he revealed was that not only was the Gaza war the intended outcome of the false flag operation of October 7th, but that war with Iran and America having a Pyrrhic victory.
Yeah.
And basically being destroyed.
Oh, my bad. And I made a mistake on the, on Hamas's operation on October 7th. It was called Alexa Flood, not Alexa Moss. Yeah, the operation that Hamas invoked on October 7th was called Alexa Flood. Sorry.
In our war against Iran. This was always the plan the entire time. And the plan was always to have this conflict become the wider. I mean, how long have we been talking about the World War III divisions? I mean, it's been obvious for a while. But everything the American deep state has been engaged in for the last decade has been driving America, NATO, and some of our, controlled countries against Russia, China, and Iran. They've just been driving towards us with everything they've got, everything that we've seen, from the Ukraine war to the overthrow of Assad in Syria to the insane genocidal activity in Gaza. It's all been in service of this ultimate clash of civilizations, which is intended to result in mass death, with the outcome eventually being a one world government of totalitarian control that will exist forever. That's what they're pushing towards. And I'll show you videos on the other side where every Western military leader now is reflecting exactly the same talking points about how we are about to get into a big time conventional global